Hello everyone and welcome back to WOR here for Tier 2, Round 2 here at Kota and joining me as always, Safi, hello.
Hello, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me as always. Looking forward to round two. I mean, we had an electrifying season opener at Interlagos, and hopefully the momentum continues.
Yeah, definitely. We'll have a look at the standings quickly and you can see Jay had an amazing victory in Brazil. He was looking actually for a P3 going throughout the race, but then when the pit stop stage came, Lefted and Harvey pitted a little bit later and they ended up coming out a lot further behind where they should have done, which allowed Jay, Yannick, and Daniel to get the top three, which is a really nice battle between those three near the end. Lefty crashed out on the actually at the line and didn't get any points. That's a shame for him, so he's in his 16th. Yannick's a reserve, but he'll be racing again today, so we'll be able to try and help him maybe secure first in the championship. But it should be interesting. Yannick might get a full-time seat if he's able to keep up his form because he's been doing really well. Harvey's in 4th, followed by Cameron, who had a really good race. Started, I think it was about 9th, dropped down to 16th, then moved back up to 5th. Leroy in 6th, Philip got 7th, and then obviously from then we had penalties which changed things. So some people might be in the points, some might not have, depending on the post-race penalties. Then we look at the team championship. Williams lead by 25. McLaren second with 18. And you can see then it kind of just drops down 15, 10, 8, 4, 2, 1. And then Mercedes and Aston, who were looking pretty quick, unfortunately scored no points at all. Aston had no drivers finish, whereas Mercedes had one driver finish who scored no points. So it's going to be interesting if Mercedes can get back up there today.
Yeah, one will have to hope and one will have to wait and see. Of course, we're looking for a bit of a return to form for like some Mercedes. Aston Martin also looking like they need a bit of a pep up. But in particularly, AlphaTauri, I believe, really deserved a lot more points from that first round. Of course, we had the incident at the line where they crashed out just what felt like millimeters before the line. So, of course, they didn't get that points. But still, AlphaTauri, I'm certainly expecting to jump up the order today and in the coming rounds.
Definitely. I think that's definitely possible. Obviously, we haven't got... I don't think we got Lefty today, unfortunately. If you have a quick look on the game, I don't think we have. No, we haven't, which is a big shame. So, Lefty's probably the quickest out of the two. Obviously, Simon's another quick driver, but he didn't have luck. He also caused a collision. I think it was with Mark Schluter. So he dropped down to 10th. I think he finished around 8th or 9th. So that wasn't very good for him, of course. And I'm just going to have a quick look in the Discord, and I can tell you which reserves we've got today. Because last week we had some reserves and some of the full-time drivers didn't race, obviously. So if we just have a quick look at that when it pops up. So we have Yannick replacing Connor, lefted in the AlphaTauri. We have Kevin replacing Fion in the Aston Martin. We have Tima Zelenkiewicz replacing Andre Molnart. We have Harlan Marquis replacing Tony Richet. And then we have Joao, I think I said that right, Joao Piana replacing Jack Humphreys in the Williams. But enough talk about the standings of drivers. If you want to talk through the calendar, Sappy.
Yeah, of course. So, of course, we are on round 2 now, Circuit of the Americas into the United States following an electrifying first round in Brazil. And as we look ahead, we, of course, not being bound by real-world logistics, we can jump around to any tracks as we see fit. So, of course, Circuit of the Americas now, for the Baku City Circuit, Spa-Francorchamps, Hungaroring, Portimao, Paul Ricard, and that's just the first half of the season. I think in terms of big shakeups, one thing that viewers will certainly want to look forward to is that next week, Azerbaijan is a sprint race. How do you think that's going to shake up the order?
That'll be very interesting. I haven't actually done much sprint race, commentated over many sprint races in any of the top leagues, so that will be. It'll be interesting, but I think it can also be fun. It's Azerbaijan, it's one of them tracks. It's a little bit like Monaco and Jeddah in a way. You've always got to be on the limit. You've always got to push yourself, and it's the fact of will the drivers sit back and just try and get through the sprint race, or do you think they'll try and push for positions, try and get to the top? So all them things will come into play, and that will make it an interesting sprint. And then obviously we'll go into the race. That's when the drivers will really be pushing for it. So I think a sprint race, especially Azerbaijan, will be good because you know, it's a difficult track, so the drivers are going to be extra cautious. You know, if you crash out in the sprint race, no matter where you got in qualifying, you sign at the back. So that's not where you want to be at all.
Yeah, absolutely. Sprint race is going to be where the money is at, especially Azerbaijan, where it's such a high-speed circuit and such a high-pressure circuit with really no room for error. That's one thing we can definitely look forward to. But that's next round. This is this round. Circuit of the Americas. Should we take a look at the track?
We should.
I think let's take a look at the track. So, of course, Circuit of the Americas, 20 turns, quite a ruthless circuit in its own right, and looking like an absolute spice fest out there on track. So, of course, places to note: the uphill turn one, almost deceptive in a lot of the drivers' minds for because it's an incline. Those braking distances are a lot shorter. So, something that the drivers have to get to grips with pretty quickly before heading into the much faster sections, say turns 3 through 9, quick switchbacks, left, right, left, right, left. In pretty difficult section to master, you have to absolutely nail your lines through that section. But if you can get a ton of speed before you get to turn 11 and a tight hairpin before the DRS zone at the back straight of the circuit. Really where we see a lot of the action, a lot of the moves on track going down before a quick slowdown, and then the final sector before opening back up through the start-finish straight.
Yep. I'm very sorry about the screen there. There's some issues with that clip. So yeah, that's why it was freezing. It's nothing to do with the stream. It's the clip itself. I think the file's broken. But before we get to quality, because the drivers are getting ready to ready up now, we're gonna have a quick message from our sponsor, Williams Esports. Honestly, if I was anywhere near Grove, I would definitely be attending the Williams place. It looks amazing, doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, like I said, state-of-the-art facility. I believe
Definitely.
it. I mean, you look at some of the much larger shots, and yeah, I wish I was so much closer because I would be a permanent resident there if you let me.
Yep, same here. And if anyone is a fanboy of George Morgan, he'll be there on the opening, which I believe is the 26th, if I'm correct. He'll be there at the grand opening. So, you know, if you want to go and have a chat to George, then get down to Grove, book your tickets, and yeah, it'll be a fun day. And it would definitely be a tiring day as well, because those simulators, in my eyes, they look like they're going to be very tiring on your hands, because they are top of the notch simulators, not like my old trusty Logitech G920 I've got next to me. But we're about to get in. We've got one driver left to get in, and yeah, it should be interesting. Who you gonna go for pole, Sappy? I'm gonna say Harvey.
Yeah, that's a tough one, honestly. I think so speaking of equipment, let's say drivers that have the direct drive wheels are going to be quaking in their boots for some of these corners, some of these sectors of the track. If I had to put my money on anyone, oh, that's tough. That is really tough because you've got some really top performers here. I think it is going to be Harvey for me as well, honestly. He put on a solid performance. Though saying that, the track is looking fairly overcast. Not sure if there's signs of further rain, but nothing's coming up on my weather meters. Well, everyone's immediately rushing out of the pits, though.
That could be signs of rain, definitely, with everyone going out onto the track. Last night in Tier 1, we saw full wet qualifying for all three qualifying sessions. Obviously here, we've got the shorter format of just 18-minute qualifying. So, and we saw the troubles the drivers had in the wet conditions. These drivers are now again, look, everyone's out apart from one driver, because I do think rain will be on its way, because they all seem to be going out very, very quickly. Normally it's a bit more gradual, but this time everyone's out, and Harlem's opting to stay in. So we might be seeing different things on his feed. But if we look a bit further down into the midfield, there we go. Look, they're all together, about 6 or 7 of them, all charging down in towards turn 11, I believe it is. Yes, it is. An amazing track. I would say this is one of the most underrated tracks on the calendar. What do you think, Sappy?
I think that it is not so much underrated as it is just everyone knows it's good,
Hmm.
but it's in a way
Oh,
a lot of people all saying that
I was on
that's a
board there.
DC.
It seemed like either
Oh
Joao
no.
broke very, very violently and Tom went into the back of him, or there was a bit of desync. I wasn't actually paying attention there, but all of a sudden I saw Ferrari's wing in the air. I hope that's not desync because that would not be ideal. We're going to go on board with Bogdan Moldovan though, as he's the first one on a lap now. He's heading down towards turn 1. Bogdan's a pretty quick driver. He's not always at the top when it comes to qualifying, but in the race, he's always got that pace there. So it'll be interesting to see what lap time he can set. And actually, I don't know if it was just me. I thought I could see a little bit of rain. I can see a little bit of rain. This is interesting. So the people out first are going to get the best qualifying laps because the track's going to start getting wet. Yeah, it is getting wet. You can see the lack of grip Bogdan's got now as he's coming through in towards turns 9 and 10. He wants to get his lap time set quickly. People are near the back. I think Joao was one of the final drivers to get out. So he'll be at big disadvantage compared to the drivers such as Bogdan. I think it's Corner de Backer who's just behind him in the Aston Martin. So yeah, Bogdan charging down towards turn 12 now. The long straight where Fernando Alonso actually took flying lessons. This time Bogdan doesn't, which is good to hear. And he hops over the curb into 12. Now charging through to 13, all the way through to 15. Very tight corners. And we saw here it was Brendan, Barry, Yano, I think it was Thomas, all fighting for that win on the last lap of the Esports USA Grand Prix. And there we are, Bogdan charging through in towards 17 and 18 now, where we saw Vettel and Magnus have an amazing battle. And now in towards 19 and finally into the final corner, turn 20. And you can see the rain starting to come down a little bit more now. What time does Bogdan set on the board? It'll be in the 33s. It'll be a 33.3.
And everyone's starting to come in. I say Corner de Backer coming in. Ballas Palmer, Yannick Schmidt breaking it into those 132s immediately. JSD coming in with a 32.9 as Gianpietro Giano with a 32.7. Cameron with the 0.6. It's going to immediately come down. It's like a waterfall. Everyone is flying through, setting their times all at once, getting that mad dash out at the beginning. Bogdan had that prime position, set the benchmark, but everyone's quickly usurped those top spots. Kevin coming through now. 2 McLarens, what are they going to do? Harvey Cohen, 8P8. Felipe Salsa in P14. And that leaves a couple of the Red Bulls, but one of them's gone into the pits.
Oh, I was going to say
Brown, the 0.6.
I was going to say then it was an Alpine 1-2, which it was, and then Leroy went quickest, so it's an Alpine 2-3, which if they could, if they could keep that 2-3, that would be really nice. Cameron scored 5th in the last round. I don't think Gianpietro scored once, so this could be a good opportunity for the Alpine pair. Very unfortunate for Mercedes yet again. 18th and 19th have set no laps. That is really not where they want to be. It's them, and I think
they're out in the bottom.
Yep,
they are out, and they have not got a lap when it's starting to get much wetter.
Nope, it's not ideal, and I can't see many other times improving, unfortunately. Joao with a 33.4 takes 16th and last of the drivers to set a lap. So there's about 1.2 seconds, I think. Or 8/10 separating first to 16th. Leroy Brown finished 6th in the race back in Brazil. Now qualifying on provisional pole. Would be very nice if you could convert that into a win. That could possibly put him on the top of the standings. Because look, person first in the standings, Jay, down in 8th, which is not where he wants to be. And if it is going to start raining more, this could be the qualifying grid set already. 3 minutes into qualifying. Which would not be good for the drivers such as Harvey and Jay, who are definitely 2 of the quickest, and Daniel, 3 of the quickest drivers, down near the bottom of that top 10.
Well, looking at my weather monitors right now, say 34% rain chance, and that's only creeping higher as we get further into the qualifying session. So I think we could be looking at the grid order. I think you might be right on that, because it doesn't look like it's going to be letting up anytime soon.
Nope. I'm on board with Sergio Sobrino currently, as he's coming through in towards turn 17 and 18 now. Let's see if he can get a lap time on the board. We'll be able to see how much the track has gotten worse or better. You never know. It could have helped. Somehow the rain could have given grip because it's F1. The game's broken. But on board is Sergio now as he exits the final corner.
Yeah, of course, brave move. If it is wet on their end, then it's a brave move staying out on the softs when the track is surely starting to get a little bit of that slick on it. That early rain without time to properly displace and bed it in, that is surely going to be a challenge to control on the soft tires, or at least certainly you're going to be losing a lot of grip. So handling it through the complex very nicely though. Keeping it tight to the apexes, good throttle control as well, not being too overzealous as to lose the rear. But it's looking very nice, very clean as we head into the second sector now, coming up to turn 11. Nice and wide over the curb. Just, yeah, maximizing the angle. Full deploy here. Seeing what kind of speeds we can hit, what speeds we can expect, because that can be very indicative of cars' setups as well. So about 195 miles an hour, 196 even. Scraping close to those 200s. But it really is a fine balance. Of course, you can maximize your wings, nail the first and third sectors, which I think really is the play for outright speed on these kind of tracks. But that also does leave you vulnerable to DRS overtakes should you be in that striking distance. Anyway, coming through, last few corners now from Sergio Sobrino. He's pushing hard, trying to get the most out of the time while they still have it and while the track is even relatively dry. Parallel with the curb as they come across the final corner. What time are we going to be looking at? It's looking okay, but it's only 133.3. That's P15. Hops a couple spots, but it's not going to be enough for any substantial gains.
Well, the rain's actually sticking where it is, just a little bit of a drizzle, and everyone's back out again. Also, that's Nick there being impeded by an Alfa Romeo. I'm not sure if that was nearly a bit of contact there. I think Nick's very angry about that Alfa Romeo completely ruining his lap. So Nick's now down in 18th still. We're going to go on board with Harlem. He's just coming down in towards turn 12 now. Everyone out on getting started on their second runs. So the rain, luckily, isn't causing too much harm at the moment. But it'll be interesting to see if it does. So I think everyone's just, at the moment, just trying to get out there, get as many laps in as they can before the rain starts pouring. You never know, it could stay like a drizzle all session. Or it could get worse near the end. So, you don't take any gambles. You just want to get out there, get some laps in with your soft tyres. And still on board with Harlem now. He's coming in towards turn 20. And the track does look like it's getting a little bit worse from my view. Let's see what time Harlem sets on the board. It'll be a 34.3. Which puts him last. On board with Leroy Brown, he's now just coming through towards the S's section.
Yeah, we're seeing water start to pool up and drip onto the cars now. So this is kind of that crossover point where we are really starting to see people lose pace. And we saw right there, say Harlem 134.3. I don't think many other drivers are going to get a good shot as long as this weather persists.
Well, I'm watching Cameron Dowds. He's down by a second in that middle sector. Leroy Brown let off coming in towards turns 8. So I think they know it's done. Bogdan's into the pits. Ballas is into the pits. I think we all know, there's nothing we can do. Bogdan's retired. So at the moment, I'm not going to say anything for certain. It looks like we've got Leroy Brown on pole, followed by Cameron Dowds and Gian Pietro Oggiano, P2 and 3, which would be absolutely perfect for Alpine.
Yeah, it's looking very good for Alpine right now. So according to my monitors, the rain is only going to stay or get stronger over the rest of the quali session. So I think a lot of drivers are, as we see a few more drivers retiring from the session, that it is almost like writing on the wall. Yeah. They know that they can't get any improvements on these soft runs. So it's really a case of just at this point, for a lot of them, conserving resources.
Indeed. And the worst part about all of this is we're still going to sit here now for 6 minutes. Because the qualifying sessions are over. We all know no one's going to improve, but, there's nothing that can really be done. Unless everyone retires, which I think that's when the qualifying would end, but everyone being able to retire, I'm sure, surely someone's not going to do it.
No, but, I think we're going to see a half and half split. Half the drivers are going to retire, but I also think that we're going to see some drivers potentially go out on things like Inters, so that they can get a bit acclimatized to wet weather driving. Should that carry over to the race, it's good to know how your car is going to react in certain scenarios. So I think a lot of drivers might, if they are necessarily not feeling as confident on the track, saying that our numbers are dwindling fast. So someone better prove me right here. But yeah,
Oh,
getting that acclimatization for that wet running will
mhm.
help and pay dividends should it come to the race and those be the conditions.
Definitely, but I think it's pretty clear to say now we've got our grid sorted. So Leroy Brown's taking pole, Cameron Dowd's in second, Jan Pietro in third, and then it's nice to see all the way down to 10th. We've got some surprising names. We've got Simon Lukomsky in fourth, Kevin in fifth. Yannick should be a little bit higher than sixth. Daniel down in seventh. That's not too bad for him. Jay and Harvey should be in that top five, if you ask me. Zelenkiewicz making his first appearance for the Haas team as a reserve. He's 10th. Corner backer 11th. Ballas Palmer, Mark Schluter, Bogdan Moldovan down in 14th. Sergio Sabrino and Harlem 15th and 18th. So Mercedes really not having any more luck this week. Philip Sousa 16th, and then Joao Piana, if I said that right, down in 17th. And then obviously Nick and, well, Tom either got took out or decided to, got a bit of desync, something like that. So he's down in 20th, and Nick got impeded by an Alfa Romeo on his first and final run. So unfortunately, he has a set lap time. But we got one driver doing exactly what you said, Sappy, and that is Harvey Carbon getting out on the Inters.
Yeah, I'll say DRS officially having been disabled. Yeah, it's a case of you've got very few drivers actually left. 3, in fact. Okay, Cameron Dowds, Yannick Schmidt, and Harvey Cohen are the only drivers left in the quali session, and are going to be using this time to practice a bit on those Inter tyres, because you have some unique properties with the green walls. It's like they do displace water, but they generally have a lower grip level. However, once you start to dig into them a little bit, the characteristics, I can't describe it. There's not a really good way to describe it, but you feel the characteristics of the tyres change beyond just a loss of grip as the race goes on. It almost feels like the car has a little bit more snappiness to it.
Definitely. And that's the thing with it being wet. You know, it's like driving a complete different car when you're driving in the wet compared to the dry. You know, and the thing is, the F1 cars are typically built for the dry conditions. You know, there'll be some cars, I don't know much about cars that drive in wet weather, but there'll be definitely cars that are built to drive in the wet and be really stable in the wet. F1 cars aren't for that. You know, wet tyres and Inters, they're good, but, you know, you definitely want more ideal conditions, and that is also the build of the cars. You know, I'm sure, I'm not an aerodynamist or anything, or a chassis expert, but I'm sure there's ways that you could build an F1 car to work well in the wet conditions, but because there's hardly any wet races, why would you bother? It'd be no point.
It's more of a case of not so much that you build a car for wet conditions, but you build a car that can adapt to wet weather conditions or just like adverse conditions. So it's like your aerodynamics package. All F1 cars are built on a principle called laminar flow, which is like the air coming across the car is very uniform. That's where you get maximum efficiency, you get maximum downforce, you get minimal drag. It's where the airflow over the car is very minimal in terms of disturbances. So by building a car that maybe has a bit more tolerance, we'll say wind, or a bit more tolerance for the dirty air of another car, or having a suspension geometry that might be a little more flexible, so you can make it a little bit softer, you can jack it up a bit higher if you need to.
Yeah.
That's in the wet weather. That's also why you get wet setups. It's again these drivers and the cars adapting to the scenario. It's not built for it. No, absolutely not. But you can make the best out of a bad situation in a lot of respects.
And the thing is, with the way it works here, it's approximate. So for all we know, the drivers could have been told, right, it's going to be a dry session. It's going to be a dry race. If the drivers aren't aware of that, I mean, if the drivers, you know, they've read what they say, they'll be like, right, dry setup, boom, on. But, and Harvey spun there, and if the weather decide to say, actually, no, we're going to lie, it says it's going to be dry, but we're going to give you wet conditions because it's only approximate, that's when drivers will start to struggle. Because they're going to have the dry setups on. So, you know, for example, they could be running 10-8 wings. I don't know what wings are right around here. But if you was running 10-8 wings, you're done for. Completely in a wet condition. So we've got to hope that the conditions are accurate, and if it is dry if it says it's dry in the race, it will be, and if it says it's wet in the race, it will be. We've just got to hope. Harvey's coming to the pit lane. I believe we'll have a retirement now from Harvey. We've got about 2 minutes to go, and this should end the session if he does retire. And knowing Harvey, he probably won't retire, because I know Harvey. And it doesn't look like he's retired just yet. And we send the chat. Explain to me why there no Ron Hart, Uppbeat, and all them guys on this, because this is tier 2. Tier 1 was yesterday, so you missed that. Tier 1 will always be on a Sunday. Tier 2, 3 through to 7 will always be on a Monday. So yeah, if you want to watch Ron Hart, Uppbeat, and all that, make sure to be back this Sunday. At 7 p.m. I think it is. And in the chat, there's a lot of fans for Kevin. So I presume Kevin is one that we should want to win. So I'm going to say now, Kevin's going to win the race. That's probably cursed him, but people in the chat will love me for saying that. So yeah, Kevin will win the USA Grand Prix.
He's certainly put in a good quality performance at P5, and I know it's a bit of an oddball scenario, but still, under pressure, did get that good P5 position, and that's going to set him up well for the race, depending on the conditions.
Definitely. And yeah, people were saying Kevin the GOAT, yeah, he's going to win. So I'll be honest, I don't actually know who Kevin is. I presume he might go under some other name or something, but I don't actually know who Kevin is. So maybe he was on Xbox or PS. So, you know, Kevin is come out of nowhere. Never seen the guy's name before. I think he might have been racing last week. If so, then I've seen his name before. But apart from that, I've never seen him. So people say no pressure. Well, people must have high hopes in Kevin. But we've got people like Leroy Brown, Cameron Dowds, Gian Pietro at the top 3. So could be interesting. But yeah, I know Harvey was going to do this. He's left until the last exact second. So we're not going to... So we was sitting there for 7 minutes talking absolute nonsense. There we go. Oh, actually, I didn't realise the gap was so close. 6,000 between Leroy and Cameron. And then it kind of just goes all the way down to about 6/10 between the top 14. But, sadly, what do we expect when the track conditions are getting worse and worse throughout the first few laps?
Yeah, so those track conditions are brutal. But that's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. And as it stands, Leroy Brown takes the crown with 6 milliseconds ahead of Cameron Dowds in P2 and Gianpietro Giano in P3. But the Alpine 2-3, as you've been saying, is looking like very fine form for the team. AlphaTauri getting a bit of a resurgence with P4 and P6, and Simon Lekomsky and Yannick Schmidt, with Kevin passing the 2. And Aston Martin, another team on 0 points that needs to pick it up in terms of performances.
Oh,
everyone's looking on fine form. Oh, looking nice and sunny, however, here in Austin.
So, Jan says that's why Kev is the greatest of all time. Kevin could have gone pole, but he lifted off just to have a bit of fun. Lost to me in equal machinery, though. Kevin going to dive into turn 1. Apparently his name's Kevin Ballas, and I will know him after this race. So, Sappy, we will know everything about Kevin if he wins. Or if he DNFs in lap 1.
I love it. It's the classic case of, don't know about him? Trust me, you will. You will. But there we go. Timer is counting down to race start. Obviously, we have our predictions. And I think it's pretty clear to say what chat's prediction is going to be for who's going to take the race win. So let's frame this from the opposite direction. Who do you think is going to be your biggest underdog? Obviously, got Kevin Ballas, but your biggest driver that may make a surprise result.
I'm going to say, and I know it doesn't seem surprised, but Cameron Dowd's winning. But
okay,
we're getting ready. Everyone cheering in the background there on the grandstands. And we're getting 1 light, 2 lights, 3 lights, 4. And the 5th light is lit up. And it's lights out. And away we go for the USA Grand Prix. Leroy Brown getting a really nice start. But not the best start from Cameron. And not the best start from... But look at Kevin, actually, going around the outside into turn 1, gets pushed off track there. Kevin off track, still going to be fighting back to take P5. Back where he started, the Alpine's getting really close, going in towards the S's section. Cameron staying ahead of Gianpietro for now with a spin. Near the back, that's Zelenkiewicz and Philip Sousa down in 19th and 20th place. Kevin's lost position to Daniel Yeltsin, who's moved up to 5th. We've got Yannick and Conor Backer fighting. Conor Backer's made 2 positions, and he's also still battling with Mark Schluter, but he's been pushed off track by the looks of it. Now heading down into towards turn. Oh, nearly close there between Harvey. Harvey's lost lots of positions on that race start. Now down into 12th. Everyone's so close together going into turn 11. It's really, really tight. And this is going to be a really interesting first few laps.
Everyone's just fighting for that position. You saw turn 1 is 3, almost 4 abreast at points. So everyone tried to get that all-important space and really just lock in whatever position they could ahead of the turn 3 through turn 9 complex. And you see here Kevin is on board and watching ahead as Yannick Schmidt and JSD fight together, fighting for position, and he's almost lying in wait here, seeing what comes out of this altercation, because then he can swoop in and take up the scraps here. So he's looking aboard and looking like he's struggling a little bit in terms of keeping, but everyone is starting to file down into their main positions, and with a couple laps until DRS, this is kind of that crucial opener for any driver's race, and they need to absolutely nail this as Bogdan and Harvey Cohen trade positions. And in fact, Bogdan is dropping another to Nick. He's going to hold the inside line, heading into turn 1. Almost looks like they're bashing tires, getting very close and personal with one another, but PSR Nick's going to get that all-important exit, locking that move in. And yeah, this is where we see a majority of the moves being taken place before that DRS kicks in.
Yep, we've got Ballas and Sergio fighting there into the S's section. Ballas took the clever idea to get off the track, went off track and managed to not collide with Sergio, because that would have ended very badly. That's also put Ballas at a disadvantage to Tom Martinez, who's charging then after him in towards turn 11, goes up the inside. Nice dive bomb from Tom, keeps it in there. Oh, a little bit of a wide push onto Ballas there, but they're still fighting now. Heading down towards turn 11. It's no DRS, but there will be a slipstream and DRS available for them both. Tom's gaining, less than a tenth nearly now. Let's see, does he go for it? Yes, he does. Brakes late, goes up the inside. Luckily, no contact with the Mercedes. Tom bounces the curb, pushes Ballas a little bit wide now. Ballas has the inside line in towards turn 13. Tom's going to have to take the long way around there. Doesn't have enough grip, has to back out. So that's Ballas still taking that 15. But Tom coming back at the inside now. Still got to try and keep it in there. Tom's not losing this position at all. Yes, again, fails to get past. Stuck down in 16th, and I don't think he'll be making any positions anytime soon, as Joao looking for a move as well in towards turn 16. Oh, nearly hit the back of Tom there. Tom's really had a big mistake in that final sector. And we've also got Harlem on the back of Joao as well. So this will be an interesting battle for 16th.
Because Tom's got a real mountain to climb up ahead of him. Didn't get that chance to get a quali lap in, so started all the way from the bottom. Had a good fight as Harlem and Zhao fight behind him. But yeah, kind of needs to bide his time a little bit. DRS is going to be coming into effect very soon, so needs to focus on trying to regain a bit of time to Ballas Palmer and getting within that DRS, because with the train all the way up the field up until P16, you don't want that split to start growing.
No, that's not what they want. And I've actually just noticed cornerback has got a 3-second time penalty, I believe, which also is not good, because if the grid does stay like this, he'll be dropped down to 19th. Harvey, really not having a good start. Qualified, I think it was P8 or P9, now down to 11th, outside the points. Considering in Brazil, at one point we were saying he's going to win the race, to now we're saying he's outside the points. And we've also got a bit of battle behind between Bogdan and Sergio. I've also got Harvey pushing corner to backer into turn 12, getting past, a little bit of a push to pass, I think that was, if I saw that correctly. But still, fighting his Bogdan and Sergio.
He overshot it. That's what happened. They overshot his braking point, left a key window for opportunity. Harvey Cohen just slot right in there. It was close, I'll give you that, but really just making the most of the opportunity and back up into that top 10.
Yeah, well, I had Harvey on screen, but I was watching the battle behind me with Sergio and Bogdan. Pietro sets the fastest lap there, just 4 tenths behind Cameron Dowd. Really nice. But Alpine still P2 and 3. Simon Compsky having a really good race as well, up in P4, but he's losing a little bit of time to the 2 Alpines ahead, so he's about 8 tenths back off Gian Pietro. And Daniel Yeltsin also keeping in touch with Simon, so this will be an interesting battle to the top 5. We was at Brazil, obviously this isn't Brazil, but we could just again see some battles that aren't actually on track, but in the pit lane. You know, last week we saw Harvey and Lefty lose about 3 or 4 positions due to pit stops. Maybe we'll see Harvey gain 2 or 3 positions due to pit stops today. We don't know. And Philip Sater takes the fastest lap. I believe he's pitted. He's now onto the mediums. So that will definitely not be a pit stop, we'll remember, because he pitted on lap 4.
Yes, an early pit stop just where he had to. I think he had some damage from the early altercation in the first lap. But went on to the mediums. Gives them a little bit of versatility and chance to make up some time while the others are sort of fighting with each other, losing time in that dirty air, so to speak. But every single driver, bar Salsa, is on the hards right now. So I think we'll see a hard to medium strategy. Saying that, however, we've already got about 10 to 15% wear on those hard tires, so might be a two-stopper unless drivers are really economical with the rubber.
Wait, 15% on lap 4? That's interesting. I don't know if that's a lot or not, but to me, that seems like a lot of tyre wear. So maybe drivers will be thinking about a two-stop. I don't know. Maybe they'll be hoping for a safety car or something. But Philip's obviously not going to make it to the end on those mediums. That's pretty certain to say. And I'm on board with Kevin now. After looking in the chat, Kevin's got even more love. Every comment in that chat has got something to do with Kevin. So, yeah, Kevin's having a lot of love. We're on board with him now into turn 1. And he's just behind Jay, the current championship leader, who doesn't want to be in 7th. Considering Yannick Schmidt, who's 2nd in the championship, is just 1 position ahead. Meaning if it finishes like this, Yannick could possibly not take first, sorry, he'll get closer to first, but depending on how points work, Cameron and Leroy could actually maybe get into that top 2. I don't know. I'm not a mathematician, and I haven't got the point sheets out in front of me, so I can't really make the mathematics. But Daniel Yeltsin in P5, he was racing last night in Tier 1. I can't actually remember where he finished, but I know he had a stellar qualifying session on the wet tyres. I think he qualified around P6. And unfortunately, Tier 2, he's qualified around P6 as well, which is not really where he wants to be. Obviously, he was on different conditions, but still, he wants to be a bit closer to the front of the field. But yeah, there's not much battling going on now, which is a big shame. Everyone's around 6 to 8 tenths back from each other. However, Yannick and Daniel are actually 4 tenths to each other. But I can't see Cameron and Leroy having any battles just yet, unless Leroy makes a big mistake, because there'd be no point battling into turn 1, because if you do that, you could both go off track, or one of you could go off track, and that could allow multiple drives to come through. So I think it's about a bit of common sense thinking, actually, I'll step back for now, let it, battle out to the pit stops, and then we can battle. Otherwise, battling now for any position realistically could lose you more positions. And
Absolutely.
sorry there, but I've got an issue on my screen which makes the track look really weird sometimes.
Yeah, it's an occasional, so that is puddle-looking glitch or
Yes,
like,
it
say,
is.
tininess. Nah, it happens. Anyway, but looking at the sort of metagame strategy, taking a step back from the initial driving, of course, drivers have to do their best to get their positions on track, but it's really in terms of the resources that matters in terms of you getting into the midway and the later stages of the race. So like right now, Cameron could go for a move on Leroy Brown, but Leroy Brown has about 10% extra battery on the Alpine. So not only would he have to burn battery and use that DRS opportunity to catch up to Leroy, but then he'll probably have about 20% less ERS to defend and fight back with, where Leroy will have that advantage being in proximity, and also potentially a little bit of tyre save on their part, because Leroy and Cameron, as well as Simon Lekomsky, doing pretty well on the tyre save, but Daniel Hjeltsen, from what I'm seeing from my figures, couple of percent higher compared to the other drivers, and that is a crucial point, because those couple extra percent could be the difference between having the pace to keep up with the challenge versus losing it or going in a lap early, and that can make a massive difference on your race strategy. So
Definitely.
that tyre conservation, all important.
I'm watching Corner Backer and Nick now. Corner's dropped 6 tenths off Harvey, so I think he's made a bit of a mistake and could have had a little bit of battle with Nick in the final sector. So this could be a possibility for Nick. This would be a point where you think actually maybe battle would be good, because the gap ahead is quite vast. Getting on board with Nick now. We're going to go on his on board. 2.5 tenths, 1.5 tenths. Sits back, doesn't make the move yet. But Corner is really dropping time. He's 1.7 seconds back now off Harvey, and that time's continuing to drop. Nick at this point might want to try and get through on Corner. I don't know if Corner's got damage, but look at how much time he's losing. He's losing over a tenth in that first sector in about 2 or 3 corners. So Nick wants to get through, otherwise he's going to lose time. And Muckshult is out at the session. He's retired down, I think it was turn 8, the exit. I think he's hit the curb and spun and hit the wall. That, I believe, is a safety car.
That is a full course safety car right there. It's out of the session completely. And all of a sudden, this whole order is going to come a lot closer together. So this just leaves us in a very interesting... And I think for Corner, it's a sort of a almost like a safety net. It's like the gods have listened, because battery was absolutely cooked. looks like he was running a deficit on fuel, so he's having to lift and coast and be on the recharge.
Yeah.
And PSR Nick was just waiting to snap on him. So having the safety car come out, a blessing in disguise for drivers like Cornet.
Definitely. It would have been no. It would have been when, not if. Nick would have got past Cornet. It would have been within the next couple of laps. But the issue is, I mean, the sad part is for Mark Schluter. He finished P9 in Brazil, and he's finished last, DNF'd in Kota. So it's not the start of the season he wants. 2 points in what, one season? I mean, in 2 races, not ideal. Harvey and Cornet overtaking each other. Cornet's dropping positions. Has Cornet spun? Oh, he's pitting, I think. Hang on, let's go back to... Yes, he's pitted. That's why. We'll go back to tyres and have a look. So, Cornet, Tom, Zelenkiewicz, Harms onto the softs. That's an odd one. Oh, wait. I think I know what it is. So, I learnt it last week. People who pit onto the softs will pit onto the softs to then pit back onto their old tyres and take them to the end. It's to get rid of the whole mandatory pit stop thing. Yeah, I learned that last week. I've actually seen it happen twice now since I found out. I'm actually quite excited to see it happen again. So seems my information is actually coming to use and my knowledge.
Oh,
but yeah,
very clever. It is very clever.
It is. But you remember, these are the top geezers in esports. Well, some of the top guys, you know, obviously not at the top, but you know, so they will be thinking of strategies that will help them. You know, being able to think, actually, you know what, we'll take advantage of the pit stop by pitting onto a set of softs in the safety car, so then pit back onto the old tyres or onto new tyres of that the comp page is originally on. Is very clever. That can put you ahead of some of the other people because the others will be doing the normal pit stop. Yes, it can put you at a higher percentage for punctures, but you know, it's that risk you take, and that's part of driving. So, I don't know if the guys on the mediums are doing the same thing as Harlem, or if they're really going to try and take mediums 20 laps, which in my eyes would be absurd. But we'll see. The issue is, this is going to be a make or break situation for the bottom 5. The top 5 could still do the normal pit strategy, get out and win, or at least finish where they started, whereas the others are going to take a really big gamble, and you know, it might work out. You know, they might end up winning. Cornerbacker could win the race due to his he won't because he's penalty, but Tom Martinez could win due to a strategy. You don't know, but yeah. I'd say the biggest issue out there at the moment is Alpine and AlphaTauri. They can't pit on the same lap. So just say a safety car comes out in 10 laps time on lap 18 and they haven't pitted, they're going to be in a big trouble because they can't pit together. Otherwise, the person behind, so that'd be Gianpietro, would lose lots of time. We've got Ballas Palmer, Joe Piana, and Philip Sosa back into the pits. So Ballas and Joe pitted onto they're pitting onto mediums now.
Yeah, I think in terms of these tyre swapping strategies, you have to have very specific conditions for it to work. I think for one, you basically need the safety car to be out. Otherwise, the time loss is simply too great with effectively 2 pit stops. And I think the other thing is, it's only really a strat that can work if you are near the back of the grid, purely because you may not have that much deficit on a time from safety car conditions.
Yeah,
that's fair enough. But the track position you lose, especially when you consider you're going back onto your old compound, when a lot of drivers might take the option of swapping onto a fresh compound with a reduced time deficit, it is a very high risk strategy, and you can make it work. If that's what your game plan supports, then absolutely go for it. If you can make it work, don't be afraid to try it, but you have to have those very specific conditions in place. Say Harlan Marquise is looking like he's staying out on those softs and didn't pit immediately on the lap after, but that being said, not sure if we're having one more lap or not. We're about to find out with the safety car.
I could see the safety car being in this lap. Yeah, I'm still very confused why Harlem has stayed on the softs there. Maybe my prediction was wrong. In the chat, sorry about not putting the telemetry. I'll put it on now. Didn't see the message, so it's on there for Xander and whoever else wanted it. But we're going to get ready to get underway for the safety car restart. Leroy's going to lead it from Cameron and Gianpietro.
Yeah, my eyes are on Gianpietro for this one because he's got a bit of a unique task ahead of him because the pressure from behind with Simon Lakomsky and Cameron's going to be pushing to try and make an early attack on Leroy Brown. So Jean Petro's kind of got to play a little bit of a wingman here. If he's playing the team game, he's going to have to play wingman, fend off the AlphaTauri and potential Alfa Romeo. There's also going to be rearing their heads behind. But saying that, looks like we're about to set off again.
Yeah. We're going to go on board with Gian Pietro for the restart. And there you go. Cameron didn't get the ideal start. He's lost a little bit of time there. 5 tenths to gap. And then Lakomsky is gained, but he's also lost. We've also got a few people actually looking for a move. Back out on Sergio. Down into... Gunnar Backer really getting close to that Red Bull. Bogdan's moved through. So after the battle with Sergio, trying to defend Sergio and get through on him, Bogdan's also took 2 positions there, putting Bogdan up into 11th. Sergio's lost out. He's on the old hards. So now he's got someone ahead on fresh tyres ahead of him. Tom Martinez, Sergio's round actually. Spun down at turn 6 and 7. So he's now last. Not good for Mercedes yet again. At all.
It's real rough runnings for the Mercedes right now. You've got one running what's fair to consider as an alternate strategy. And Sergio Sprino getting hit with that spin to really put them out of kilter relative to the rest of the field, as everyone is going to be mostly peeling away. They've got that continuous line between them. No one's really making any big moves. JST might be eyeing up a potential run around Yannick, but Bogdan and Corner to Backer are trading positions, it seems like. They're fighting tooth and nail for position, and they are bumping tyres as they head through the 3rd sector. Bogdan's going to have the inside line, go on the defensive as he has a little bit of an edge, but Corner's going to have the inside, a little bit of a tyre bump, and that inside line through this double apex is all that he needs to get out ahead, as Tom is going to be continuing that challenge. Although on the hards and being surrounded by medium and a soft runner, it's looking like a fish out of water, Bogdan is.
Yep. Harlem got rear-ended by Zelenkiewicz then. I was on board with Harlem. That took me by surprise. So sorry about the big interruption there. But yeah, not good for not good for Bogdan. He gained 2 positions on the restart. Now he's lost 2 positions, and he's also going to be under pressure from Harlem as he's running on the softs. Still don't know why he's choosing to run the softs, but fair dues to him. Joao Piana, getting past Ballas, but Ballas has spun. Oh, he's on the grass and he got collected by Sergio Sereno, who now moves himself up into 18th place. Ballas gets the 3-second tyre penalty because he went clearly off track there. But yeah, calling back a rod to the back of Nick, you'd expect him on those mediums to be making more positions than just one. So yeah, hopefully he could get his Aston on into the top 10. His teammate in 8, so not a whole haul of points, but getting both in points would be really nice. But yeah, you can see Corner's going to gain a little bit of time going down the back straight in towards turn 12. He's used a lot of ERSs on 35%. Harlem getting past Bogdan now, so Bogdan's under real pressure, and he's not going to fight it in towards turn 12. He sticks behind. Zelenkiewicz will also be looking for a bit of a move up the inside possibly. Sergio gets the 3-second time penalty, so he's down at the back now with 3 seconds, which is not ideal for him at all.
It's looking a bit rough. At least they can prey on the stable conditions and almost getting a bit of a squeeze between Bogdan and Zelenkiewicz as they go fighting into the 3rd sector. Can't really get a read on if any drivers have damage at this point, despite the continued contact. As I said, nothing on Keith Sabrino or Salso. I believe that Palmer has some damage in the house. Just can't get a confirmation from the telemetry.
Nope. On board with Corner yet again, going after Nick in towards turn 1. This time sits back yet again, but you can see how close he gets to the rear of Nick's car because he's got so much more grip on those mediums. He's able to brake a little bit later, he's able to get on the throttle a little bit earlier, and he's now right behind Nick within a 10th. Ballast Palmer's retired in the pit lane, so he's out the session. So no points for Haas, it seems, at the moment. Kevin with a 3-second time penalty. Also, Gunne hit the back of Nick nearly. It's getting all interesting for the Aston Martins at the moment. One with a penalty, one nearly taken out of Red Bull down at turn 6. Now heading down in towards turn 11 now. And you can see Gunner's dropped a little bit back off, but he's gaining lots on that exit. Does he go for the move? Yes, he does, up the inside corner. Into 10th now. Nick just behind in 11th. Not going to fight it because there's no point in doing it, but he's going to get the DRS. So that could be an advantage for him. Obviously, Cornet's got it as well. Balspon's left the session. Cornet's got no battery.
Yeah,
Hardly.
that's the problem. It's almost like we were in exactly the same position as we said earlier before the safety car. Cornet's got no battery and is pretty much defenseless to fight off Nick, who has, at this point, 40% more. So a much bigger deficit pre-safety car. set up, and he's really going to have his wits about him. He does have something in his favour in the fact that Nick is on 11 lap old hards, about 40% wear on the thing, so not quite in that full pace drop off just yet, but starting to feel that rubber giving potentially a little bit. It's like, as a driver, you have that feel for when your car's starting to give a little bit under you, and about 40% I think is where that becomes a little bit more pronounced.
Yeah, definitely.
Is still managing to keep it on the top despite pressure from behind, which is Tom going hard and fighting hard into turn 1 on the outside. A little bit of a skating on the rear going over the curb, nearly taps and it causes an accident. And as these two are fighting side by side, you see both of them trying to claim the same space. Eventually it's going to be Tom who's going to get it, and potentially getting in big trouble as Nick has disconnected, it seems, from the session. That is the last thing you want to be happening to you in a position like this.
Yeah, considering his teammates up in P1, leaving the session in the bottom 10 is not ideal. Really not ideal for Red Bull at all. But we look further afield, you can see the gaps are starting to grow. Between P1 and P8, everyone's within 6/10. Harvey, however, getting past Kevin, puts himself into P8 now. The two Aston Martins, P9 and 10 with penalties, not ideal. Nick's still in AI, so that's why he's lost so many positions there. Sorry, but I've got a little notification, I need to turn that off. And it's tabbed me out. There we go, back. Nick's joined back, and now we've got the two Aston Martins fighting. Kevin trying to get past his teammate Corner Tobacco now. Side by side in towards 17 and 18. You can see Kevin on the inside, Corner on the outside, and they keep swapping positions constantly. But to keep on board, Corner's got past Kevin. Kevin's now under pressure from Tom Martinez. Kevin into the pit lane now. So he's going to pit now for his medium tyres. Lap 12. No, sorry, lap 14 he's pitted. So this will be interesting now. Is Kevin going to be able to take some mediums to the end? Is this where the pit stop phase actually begins? Nick.
I have to wonder, those two, why were they fighting? They had their teammates, and if Kevin knew he was going to go into the pits anyway, why fight? I have to ask. The vast difference in scenario between the two drivers, you need to be helping each other out. So to get up in each other's grills, P9, 10 as well, which are paying positions, last thing you want to be.
Yeah, well, moments like that really cast your mind back to 2014-2016 Mercedes with Rosberg and Hamilton, where even though they knew they wouldn't gain anything from battling, they still want to gain that extra position, which is what those two wanted. Yes, it comes into play for teams, but the real thing is having that driver's title. If you have the driver's title, it means a lot more to drivers than it would to have the constructors' title. As we can see Zelenkiewicz now getting past Tyler Marquis into turn 12. This is where the softs really die off now complete, so Harlem's got nothing he can really do at all. So we'll start dropping back completely. Bogdan, though, however, at a big disadvantage, being stuck behind these guys on the mediums and the softs, and he's on the old hards, and he's now losing time completely because these mediums are so much quicker. He could possibly be overtaken by Joao. Oh, is that a spin? It is a spin. I saw that one barely, and it's Conor Tobacco spun down at turn 16, and I could see his back end. Oh, we got pit stops. Gianpietro leads the race. Leroy into pits. Cameron, Yannick stays out, sorry. Tom Martinez is also staying out, so it now puts a top four, as Gianpietro, Daniel, Yannick, and Tom. So, they're all playing the team game and making sure not to pit at the same time because of the absolute amount of time they'll lose.
That is vital right there. That key move not to double stack is going to pay dividends for the team, and I think they saw more than anything some of the effects that could have and some of the team strategy last round, in fact, because I think we did see a couple of double stacks, and that did harm the strategy of a few drivers. I believe Simon Akomsky, in fact, was such driver that got heavily impacted by a double stack as his teammate went in at the same time. So avoiding that at all costs, paramount for the team mission. Gianpietro stays out, leads the race so far, with Daniel Kjelsen and Yannick Schmidt just a little bit further behind. But all he needs to do is retain position for this lap before he gets to go into the pits. So about 55% on average for these hard compounds. So that pace drop-off is there. But of course, really with the hards, it's just about making sure you can get it to the end of the race. Where you really want to be is on something like the medium compound, much faster, much more you can lean on it. And as we're seeing with drivers like Harlem, the softs are great, but they do have their drop-off point as they are now struggling to keep those softs fully in check.
So Daniel stays out. Gianpietro, Yannick, and Bogdan all pit now. So yeah, I don't know why Daniel stayed out, because the Alphas could have definitely double stacked there. So Daniel might be going for a bit of a different strategy. He's still out on his hards. Where will this put Leroy? He's coming out of the final corner, now getting past the line. Let's see, does he get ahead of Gianpietro, or does Gianpietro get ahead of him? Let's see, Gianpietro's coming out the pit lane, and he's actually lost out to Leroy Brown. He's lost out to Cameron. He's also could lose out to Simon, who's going to pressure him around the outside of turn 1. Get through on Gianpietro. Oh, they're making a little bit of contact there with the rear tyres. And that's now Gianpietro down into a provisional 4th, and Simon Komsky into a provisional 3rd, which is really nice for him. And you can see the mediums at the moment just getting a bit warmed up. They're going to be really bad on their first laps. JST, however, is on for a provisional 6th, depending on what happens with Daniel when he pits, as he'll be pitting very, very shortly. And now we've got 1 lap old mediums, we've got 0 lap old mediums. These will have a little, we'll see a little bit of battle now. But you can see Jay right on the back of Yannick, because Yannick's tyres are still a little bit cold. Obviously coming through sector 1 now, we could see Jay possibly get through on Yannick, because he wants to get as many points as he can. Because he's a championship leader, he doesn't want to be finished 5th or 4th, he wants to be finishing on that podium at least. And we can see, at the moment, no moves. Simon Cobbs gets a penalty.
Yeah, I think a key point to mention here. Remember we said earlier about that tyre conservation?
Yeah.
Daniel is about 5% lower on tyre wear than the competition. So they had that important extra lap that they could have stayed out, which they have done, now heading into the pits. But only now are they on 55%, where drivers around them were hitting it a lap earlier. So that tyre conservation, big difference, and we just saw it right there. Whether that will play in their favour, though, is the question, and one we're about to get the answer to. As you can see, drivers like Cameron and Salsa all pushing, and looks like Cameron getting the fastest lap, in fact. Where's Kjelton going to come out, though? It's going to be just after... Ooh, or is it? It's going to be a fight between themselves and Yannick Schmidt for the position as we come out of turn 1. Parallel with one another, looking for that space. Yannick's eventually going to be the one that yields, and P9 is where the Alfa Romeo comes out.
Yeah, really nice. Sorry about this. I need to tap back in. My game tabbed out by accident. But yeah, really nice there from Daniel getting ahead of Yannick. That was going to be a close one. Yannick should have really got through on him with the tyre. With the tyres needing to be warmed up for Daniel, but Daniel really pushed and got through ahead. Issue is though, Daniel's going to have no DRS, whereas Yannick will. So we could see Yannick try and get through on Daniel, because look how much he's gaining a lot. And he's going to be charging down towards turn 12. Gianpietro again past Simon Lekomsky now for 3rd, so it puts the top 3 back to Leroy, Cameron, Gianpietro. And the thing is, with the penalty for Simon, this could put Daniel and, yeah, actually it could put between P9 and P12 up into some nice points positions. Obviously the top 4 will have to pit again, which means that puts Harvey Coburn and JST 7th and 8th, which is not ideal for them at all, considering they're some of the quickest drivers here in Tier 2. So yeah, it's a big shame for them, but it's looking good for Leroy Brown, leading by 5/10 over Cameron. Gianpietro has actually lost the DRS to Cameron now, so that puts him at a little bit of a disadvantage, but puts Simon at an advantage as they charge down towards turn 1.
Well, I mean, you say earlier about some of the quickest drivers in Tier 2. In Tier 2, we have only one real data point, so we still have plenty of opportunity for relative unknowns or drivers we wouldn't otherwise peg for the title to come in and shake things up. I mean, you look at, say, Leroy right now, leading the relative race. Of course, you have the other 4 further up who do still have to pit. But this is sort of that perfect time. These early rounds, you have the chance for, as a driver, to throw your hat in the ring, say, actually, no, this isn't just a 2-horse race. I'm joining in too. So, plenty of opportunity. Nick on the softs now at the back of the field. Gonna wait to see what comes out of that strategy. I think if you have gaps like 20 seconds plus, you really only can look for a safety car. That's kind of your only out in that situation, short of the entire field getting collected in some sort of mass accident. In which case, I imagine there's a rule in place for the session to be red flagged in some manner.
Possibly. You don't know. I haven't actually read the rulebook properly. I've scanned over it, but I haven't read it into full detail. Something that Malcolm Massey should have probably done in 2021. But on board with Cameron Dowd, just 5 tenths behind Leroy. This could be an opportunity for Cameron possibly to win a race here in Tier 2. Second race in, he's been, since F1 2021, Cameron's been impressive. He's 13. He's one of the youngest of the bunch, probably the youngest in this session, possibly by a good year or two. I don't know about everyone else's age. So, the fact he's so young and able to perform so well, he's a good rising star. You could possibly see him, in the top tiers in the next couple of seasons. Looking for a possible win, Leroy, one of the experienced drivers. I think he's around 25 years of age, so he's one of the older ones here. So he's got the experience. He knows, he should have a bit more patience in terms of just hanging on, not worrying about fighting Cameron. Whereas Cameron will be one of them, he'll be wanting to get the positions. He wants to get through and get into first. That's what everyone wants to see. Jay, gets a penalty. Not ideal for the championship leader at all. Puts Harvey Cohen technically ahead of him. Nick takes fastest lap at 34.4, but we're going to go up to Joao, who's currently right behind Zelenkiewicz, because we've got a little bit of a battle here for P2. Won't be P2 for long, they'll be down in the bottom 10. Between Hassan and Williams. Never thought to say that would be a battle for P2, but here we are. And Leroy, you can see he's starting to gain a little bit more now on Philip, who's not pitted yet, and he's on his hards. So this could be interesting. Will Philip end up holding Leroy up to help Harvey? It could be possible. You don't know what's going to happen here in the world of WOR Tier 2. And apart from that, I can't really see any battles happening at the moment. Zelenkiewicz gets a penalty. And apart from that, I think the main battle will be between first and second at the final. The final couple of laps. We've got 8 laps remain, so not too long left. But the drivers are just going to keep it in there. We'll probably see the top 4 pitting soon. So yeah, unless they actually try to stretch out to the end, 8 laps. Can't see it being very possible, but you never know.
Yeah, I think that is a little bit too much of a stretch, even for the most skilled of drivers. To stretch out mediums to that far is a Herculean task and pretty much guarantees yourself a puncture. For instance, we're looking at about 25% wear having just started the 5th lap if you're on a medium compound right now. So I don't think that 20 laps on the mediums is really on the table in any meaningful metric. Although you do bring up a really good quality. Nick retiring from the session, getting the fastest lap and then retiring. Could be a little bit of a points denial strategy there. So I think another wider team game. However, experience as a driver, it can be taken one of two ways. It can be taken as, of course, I know how the track works. I know my racecraft. I know how to deal with certain situations. But it can also work against you because you can get in a bad cycle of driving with bad habits. And of course, the more experience you have, the harder it is to unlearn those bad habits as, of course, you progress in levels of skill. So say you started Tier 5 and you've been driving in Tier 5 for a few seasons. Obviously, you are doing things to make you not as fast as Tier 2. You can work your way up, but along the way, you will have to unlearn the things that made you slow in Tier 5 to be fast in Tier 2.
Yeah, so definitely.
That experience definitely kicks against you. But Kevin getting another 3 seconds of time on his name, certainly going to be a little bit of a struggle, as that is now 6 seconds. Only other driver to have such a penalty is Sergio Sobrino, and they all the way down in P16. So Kevin, looking like they might have a little bit of a struggle, though in the position they're in, would only really lose, I believe it is 1 position, if I've done the maths in my head right.
Well, I feel bad for Kevin, actually, because with the amount of support he's got in the chat, and the amount of support he's got from me, he started 5th, he's now looking at 13th, possibly 14th. So it's not an ideal race for him, is it? Maybe he could actually no. Maybe he could be like P9 because of the other 4 having to pit yet. You never know. But the thing is, listen, Leroy's gained a second on Philip in this lap alone. Do you think there'll be a point where Tom Martinez thinks, you know what? Why don't we just stay out, see what happens? I'm not going to score points anyway. Just see if we can get to the end. You never know. It could work out. If I was him now, I would go for it. If I was Philip, I'd think about pitting. But if I'm Tom Martinez, I've got about a 5-second gap to Leroy. Maybe about a 6-second gap to Leroy. Maybe I can hold it to the end. Get the mediums to the end. They'll be probably on death's door. Possibly get a puncture. But he's got nothing else going for him. So why not take that gamble? Yes,
I don't know.
Leroy will probably get through on him, but you've got Cameron, Gianpietro, Daniel, Simon, Yannick, Jay, Harvey, Kevin, all in that poised position. That's a lot of cars for him to have to defend from, and that's going to save him time. He as much as his tyres are bad, he can still make some defensive towards turn 1, lose the drivers behind a little bit of time, and able to gain himself, a bit of time in order to keep a position. Kevin's retired in the pit lane. You can see Daniel on board with him now, nearly hitting the back of Gianpietro. So Kevin hasn't won the race. So very sad for all you guys in the chat, all believing in Kevin. Unfortunately, that was not the case today, and he's DNF'd on lap 16. Lap 22 in 16th with his teammate, also retiring in 18th. To Aston Martin yet again, not going to score any points. Because I think, if I believe correctly, it was Aston Martin and Mercedes that didn't score. Also, Daniel going for a move on Gianpietro into turn 11. Harlem gets a penalty. This is going to be interesting now. Daniel gets through on Gianpietro, but see, is Gianpietro going to try and fight back in towards turn 12? This is close. This could be a chance for Daniel to be on the podium and for Gianpietro to lose a 2-3 for Alpine. And you can see it looks for a little bit of him up the inside, but backs off the last second, trying to trick Daniel a little bit, probably into a move. But the real question is now, when does Cameron strike? When does Daniel try and strike? Because surely they'll want to be getting some moves around lap, maybe soon actually, to get the move secured and done early. Sometimes they'll leave it to the last lap, but is that too late? If you make a mistake on the last lap, that's it done over. So do you want to get it maybe done a little bit earlier and be able just to try and secure yourself that position? The issue though that Cameron's got is that Leroy's into DRS of Philip.
It's a tough judgment call to make. I think there's two frames of mind, and I've been thinking about two scenarios in my head. If I was at the front end of the field, so like Tom, Zlinkovic, and João Piena, I would be looking at potentially the last few laps, switching to softs, and that may seem like a deathbed to any points. However, it's either that, or I put myself in a real danger zone. So 5 laps to go, about 70% predicted on the medium compounds. As Gianpietro gets a 3-second penalty, that is basically a death knell for the strategy in the terms of the Alpines right now. So you have that Alpine relative 2-3, and Daniel now knows he's in the clear. But if those front runners, I would consider the softs in the last few laps, just because that means I make it to the end, potentially get a fastest lap point if I'm within that sort of top 10. And looking at all the penalties, I can apply a bit of maths here, get myself a little bit of a window.
Yeah.
And in terms of Daniel's POV, saying that though, AlphaTauris are trading positions.
Yep, and Simon doesn't want to leave that go. He's going to get past Yannick yet again, go around the outside. Simon's going to push him a little. Yannick's going to push him a little bit wide. I'm getting mixed up with these two now. And yeah, Yannick keeps position. When you see two cars on the same team battling, I end up getting mixed up between names because you don't actually know who's ahead of who, because the time screens are swapping so quickly. You're like, hang on, who's actually ahead? But yeah, Yannick's ahead. Get past Simon. Simon's got a penalty, so that puts Yannick in a provisional 4th. And that could also put Harvey in a possible provisional 5th, which wouldn't be the worst in the world. But the thing is, look at these gaps now. If I was Tom, I would consider staying out. I think it's all down to opinion and what you want to do, but if I was Tom, I would say it, because look, yes, Leroy's gaining time, but with the DRS, it's going to be hard for him to get past. So, if Tom can get to the end, it's possible. He's lost actually about 4 tenths to Zelenkiewicz in his last couple of laps, which isn't ideal. But Tom could be on a possible win, which would be an absolute masterclass from him if he could. And he's going to be pushing to the end. I can't see him pitting there because he'd come out last when he could possibly win. Yes, he might get a puncture, but it's all on the cards. All the cards are on the table. Any strategy could work at this point. Cameron Dowes, look at him right. Daniel also getting involved on the back of Leroy. I think Cameron knows, hang on, this might not go our way. This might not be a possible win now. So Cameron's going to try and get through on Leroy, which he is, down in towards turn 12. Gets past Leroy. Leroy's still going to fight back around the outside into turn 12 now. Leroy goes deep, concedes a position now. That's Cameron into 5th. Now we'll be wanting to push for Philip Sousa, João Piena, Zelenkiewicz and Tom, who are all within distance. Look at these two here. Philip on the back of João. Now that's Daniel past Leroy. Leroy and Daniel still fighting towards turn 16, 17. This is going to be interesting. Cameron gets past Philip now. Cameron's going to be right on the back of João. This has been an absolute masterclass lap from Cameron Day, which is using all his battery trying to get through.
He's been giving it absolutely everything in these sort of last few lap and a half, I'd say. But yeah, this really convergence point of the two strategies. And yeah, any form of tire change is out the window now as Cameron gets a past João Piena. And it's just Zelenkovic and Tom ahead of the eventual, what could stand between them in a victory. So if Tom's position, best you could do, nurse those tires as far as you can.
Yeah.
There's so little grip left in them, and you really can't afford to be pushing too hard for fear of the puncture, as we are about to hit that 80% threshold on the medium compounds. This is a real danger zone, and why I was so skeptical about taking them to the end, but give it with a little bit of a pinch of salt. As Bogdan and Sergio Sobredo both get penalties, and Gianpietro is down in P12 following a spin, putting him behind the two McLarens and really completely out of the running. So if the Alpine suit wanted some high points, it all rests on Cameron as he gets past Zelenkovic now, and all that stands between him and the win is Tom Martinez.
This is going to be interesting for Cameron now. I've commentated on him on, I think, over 25 races. He's never won one, so this will be amazing for Cameron. I want him to win this. I know he can do it. I said at the start, remember, I said it might not be an underdog, but Cameron could win the race. So maybe it will come true. Tom Martinez leading by 6/10. This could be over now for Tom. On to lap 26, the lap before the penultimate lap. However, Cameron's got no ERS. Actually, nor has Tom. They're both on low DRS, so this is going to be interesting. Janik Schmidt's getting past João Piena. That's also going to be Leroy Brown looking for a move. But look at this. Cameron's got himself into P2. Leroy Brown's now in P7. Zelenkovic and João are still fighting now in towards turn 2. And actually, we're going to go and bully João because he looks like he's really on the back of Zelenkovic and wants to get through. This is still points positions for Tom, João, possibly Zelenkovic with his penalty. But this is getting interesting. JS is also getting involved now, right in behind Leroy and the Williams. This could be a good fight between P7 all the way down to P10. We've also got Harvey Cohen getting involved as well. He's now looking for a move. We've got Leroy getting past João. Is Jay going to be given some leeway by his teammate? Looks like it's not. He's going to have to fight for that one. Jay gets through on João now. João now down into P8.
But look at the front of the field, though, as it's going to be Cameron making that vital move. And Daniel is also going to be looking for the same, as Cameron's completely burnt everything on his battery. Almost looked like he overshot the corner, but not quite. And yeah, with both of them having run out of their ERS, the main dividing factor was the grip. I'm getting informed in chat that the telemetry tool is overestimating, is in fact 75% on the tyres, still in a danger zone, but nowhere near as bad as I originally thought. So thank you, Chatty76, for that. But Daniel is up into P1 as Cameron was sort of left sleeping. Daniel had that little bit of extra ERS that made it all count, and all he has to do now, with 2 lap younger mediums to boot, is defend.
I'll be honest, I did not see that one coming. I wasn't watching Daniel, and all of a sudden he's I'm thinking, hang on, that's an Alfa Romeo, that's Daniel going for the lead. We've also got Yannick and Tom fighting. Yannick now into P3. But this has been an interesting race. Harlem's got a 5-second penalty for speeding. The pit lane, he'll be out to the session, I presume. But now this is down to the wire between Daniel and Cameron. At the start of the race, I did not think it'd be Daniel versus Cameron, but it is. Yannick Schmidt could also get involved. He's 1 second behind, got to get back into DRS of these top 2. Leroy Brown, however, now out to the 1 second to Tom Martinez. He's lost lots of time. I don't know if he's got a bit of damage, but he should be gaining more than he is. Which is a big shame. Zelenkovic, I think, is round. Was that a bit of a... Yes, he is round. Zelenkovic is round down at... I think that's turn 8, the exit. And you can see now, we're going to go Buddy Cameron. How much closer is he to get on this lap 27? He's 5.5 tenths. But the question is it enough? 4.5 tenths. Less than 4 tenths now. Less than 3 tenths into the braking zone. Just less than 3 tenths now. This is close between those two. Cameron needs to stay intact to the back of Daniel. We're going to be getting onto the final lap very, very soon.
Cameron just needs to use the DRS zones to get a bit of an ERS deficit to fire a move. That's all he needs to do. Get a little bit of DRS to get some charge down, and then through the second DRS zone on the back straight, if he can execute it perfectly, he can lock in and move through the 3rd sector. But the chances of that happening as he falls away to now 3/4 of a second, the chances are looking slim.
Yeah, On board with Tom and Jay now fighting for position down at the final corner, turn 20. We've also got Simon getting involved here. We've had a spin. I think that's Zelenikiewicz again. Now at the back of the field, Sergio Sabrino gets a penalty. This is not ideal, but look now. The gap between Cameron and Daniel is getting bigger. 7 tenths. And now Yannick's getting involved. He's 6 tenths behind. This could be an interesting end. I think it'll be down to the wire. Tom now into 7th. He'll also gain 2 positions because of the penalties. So this is also good for Harvey Cohen, who's right on the back of Tom Martinez now. Oh, and a spin from Gianpietro again! And it's Tom Martinez round! That was...
Both of them are shot. Tom's got a puncture, rear right. He's got a puncture. He's above the 80% threshold. The tyre's fully delaminated. He's struggling to get any movement out of the F175.
Yeah, not ideal.
He's going to limp it home. P13 right now. I don't expect that to stay. But that is, yeah, Tom fully out for the count. I didn't want it to go this way, but lo and behold, it has. So Tom limping home P13. Zelenkovic on the only other 20-lap runner doesn't make it to the end. DNF's in the pit lane. Bogdan trades space with Zhao. And as we look down at the top end of the field, it looks like Daniel might be home free because he lost a lot of time. Cameron lost a lot of time fighting with Yannick Schmidt.
Yeah.
And that's given Daniel that key time he needs to come around the final corner. And in the Alfa Romeo, Daniel Shelton from ET8 is going to win WR Tier 2's American, we'll say United States Grand Prix.
I love that race, to be honest. That was absolutely amazing. Leroy Brown comes 4th. Harvey Cohen gains positions. Big shame for Tom, but I know that at the same time I would have done exactly what he did, so I can't blame him for taking that risk. You know, if he didn't get that puncture, we'd still come on P7 or 8. But 2 people to mention there, Joao and Philip. 8th and 9th, 21 old hards, 20 lap old mediums. That is, you know, fair enough to them for definite. Harlan gets another 5-second time penalty for unserving his penalty, but that was really down to the wire. At one point, it's like, right, Cameron's got the win. He's behind Leroy. Then we're thinking, hang on, but Tom, Joao, Philip have all got a chance to actually keep the lead. And then Cameron goes on an absolute charge through the field, gains about 4 positions in 1 lap. Then Daniel comes out of nowhere, Yannick comes out of nowhere, and then Daniel gets passed on the lead for lap 26. And then Yannick was really putting Cameron under pressure on that final lap, round turn 14 and 15. But really nice race on Cameron, really nice race on Daniel and Yannick. But if I had to go for driver of the day, I'd have to say Daniel.
I think that's completely fair. So they made the best of the situation and really just, yeah, put in that strategy to an absolute T. You couldn't really ask for anything more. It is very unfortunate for some of the drivers out there. Of course, you have Tom. That's sort of been the big focus of a lot of this. As they took a big risk. A risk that was too high for the cost, in my opinion. Again, if I was in that position, I would have gone with the safe bet. I would have just gone for a potential swap to softs, even if it means I finish 8th or 9th. Maybe I can creep up some time, but at least I would not be risking a big puncture like we saw there. Big drama unfolding in the last lap, but as you see, podium now, and a lot of drivers standing proud. Good day for the Alfa Romeo suit.
Yeah, indeed. Really good for those top 3. But we've got an interviewee who'll be joining us. Will be Cameron Dowds. Will be the first one. But before we do that, I'm just going to have a quick look at the results. There we go. The results of the United States Grand Prix. Daniel takes the win in the Alfa Romeo over Cameron Dowds, Yannick Schmidt, and Leroy Brown. But the biggest surprise of all, Jay, the championship leader, finished down in 6th. I'm not going to work the maths out now, but that could possibly be maybe Cameron or Daniel in the lead of the championship. It could be an interesting one. It will be a close one indeed. Leroy Brown also getting past Jay as well in terms of will be gaining on Jay in terms of points, and Yannick Schmidt. This will be a really close fight between the top guys now, I think, going into the next round. But we're going to get the interview screen on as we've got an interviewee to join us, which will be the one and only Cameron Dowds. Hang on, let's get him in. We've got Daniel as well, so we'll drag both of them in. Hello, Cameron, and hello, Daniel.
Hello.
Cameron, describe that race in a few words.
Yeah, it was really good. I had a good qualifying. the first two sectors was really good, and then I messed up the final a little bit, but it was still really good. And then, in the race, that was actually probably one of the best races I've drove, to be honest. It was really good pace, and I thought I could have got it, but Daniel was just so quick at the end. I knew I should have thought ahead, and I knew that it would be really hard to follow through the first sector, so I don't really know what I was doing when I just kind of, I could have battled him more, but it was really difficult against him. And then there was a lot of pressure. Just I didn't know if we were actually going to pass the. I don't know if it was forward in front of us. So
It was
I was just
four.
trying to keep that pace. Yeah, trying to keep that pace up to get to them.
Mhm.
But
And also-
Pardon, sorry.
No, I was gonna say, carry on, carry on.
It was a really good battle at the end with Daniel. I wish I could have just kept my nose in and kept battling him and maybe stayed ahead. But yeah, he drove a brilliant race and he deserved it.
Definitely. But when it come to near the end of the race, obviously, I think we all presumed at first maybe the top four, which is Tom, Zelenkiewicz, and a couple of others, would pit. But when it got to the end, you realised they wouldn't. Is that why you ended up going for a massive push? Because you knew maybe they're not going to pit, and you need to make sure you can actually get the positions.
Yeah.
Because it would have been close with Tom at the end, I think, if he didn't get his puncture.
It was just I really wanted to get past Leroy before we got to the traffic because I knew like if Leroy got past and then I got stuck behind, I knew it would be over. So I just tried to save up my ERS a little bit, and I knew as soon as we got close to them just to go for it and trying to pass Leroy because I knew if someone got stuck behind the people who hadn't pitted and I was ahead, I'd have a better chance. So yeah.
But one thing before I let you go, are you excited for Azerbaijan being a sprint race next week, or is that not something you're looking forward to?
No, sprint race should be good, but I'm not looking forward to the track. Don't like Baku very much.
Well, I don't think many people do. But thanks for joining me, Cameron, and we'll see you next
Thank
week.
you.
And
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. And we got one final person, Daniel, if you'd like to unmute.
Yes.
That was a very good race from you indeed, wasn't it?
Yeah, very happy with the race. Not very happy with the qualifying, as I think it was P7. It was obviously a kind of one-shot quali. The hairpin before the long straight, I just locked up and went straight on, so costing me at least like 2/10 minimum.
Yeah.
But I knew from practice before the race that my pace was going to be very strong, and the race pace was very strong, and the strategy as well by doing the overcut and having the fresh tires in the end of the race paid off, and just pretty much perfect race from my perspective.
Definitely. Obviously, you pitted a bit later than the others, but also you had that practice in T1 last night, so that also gave you a bit of an advantage. So you could kind of work out what strategies work best. Would you say that practice in T1 helped tonight for the race?
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes it wouldn't help, but yesterday I was pitting around lap 14, and I lost the DRS train in the last laps yesterday because my tires were just dead. So I knew I had to go longer today, and I was quite surprised to see so many cars pitting on lap 14 and 15. But paid off for me, so happy.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, coming to the end of the race, was you worried about Tom and that in front because they was going to stay out to the end, and if they didn't get punctures and whatever, they could have possibly made the end. Was that a worry at first, thinking actually I need to get through on these, and it's all depending on how hard they fight and battle with their tyres?
Well, knowing from my experience yesterday, I felt the tyres were like dead on lap 14. When they pitted on the safety car like lap 9, they're just going to be so much worse on the tyre, so I was pretty confident we were going to get them.
Yeah, but one more thing before I let you go. Absolute masterclass in the race today. Qualifying didn't go your way, but the race definitely did. And actually, looking at the points, you actually will take the Championship League on into the next round, which is really good as well.
Yeah, I'm really happy with that, and my target is obviously to take the championship. So yeah, it's been a positive 2 first races with 1 podium and 1 win, so happy.
Yeah, definitely. But thanks for joining me, and we'll see you next week at Azerbaijan.
Yes, see you next week.
So there we go, everyone. That is the race over. Let's get back on the intermission screen. Unfortunately, we haven't got Sappy with us as his Discord's died. Let me just turn the window capture off. You can't see what it is over. But that's the race over. Very good race from my perspective. It was really good. Lots of action. At some points, there's about 3 or 4 battles going on. I don't know which bit to commentate on. So you're jumping between battles constantly. Especially when you've got people fighting that final sector, turn 12 all the way down to turn 20. So yeah, I'd say it was definitely better than Brazil in my opinion. Brazil, had more battling, but it was more battling, but it was less intense. Whereas this, people go side by side in parts where you shouldn't, especially when you're coming in towards the S's section. You had, I think it was Tom and someone else going side by side through that whole section, and that's the type of things you don't see in Brazil. Yes, you can see them side by side, but it's not really the wire. It's a very easy track to go side by side. This is a track where it's difficult. So the drivers are going to take really big risks, really, to get the positions. And people such as Daniel getting through the pack, and Cameron's really worked out for them. Obviously, Leroy unfortunately couldn't get himself through the pack as easily, so he dropped down to start and finish 4th. Also the old championship leader Jay unfortunately finished 6th, but due to Daniel having both podiums, he will take the championship lead for next week. I think it'll be about 3 or 4 points. Yannick Schmidt will also jump Jay as well, so Jay could possibly drop down to around 4th or 5th in the championship, which obviously it's only been 2 races, but it's not ideal. If you start at the top, you want to finish at the top. You don't want to drop down after a couple of races. And I still don't believe Stabby's here. No, he's not. So I want to say a big thank you to everyone for joining the chat. Nice to see all the viewers in, and everyone cheering for Kevin, who unfortunately didn't finish the race, finished 16th, being up in the pits. So that's a big shame. Maybe we'll see Kevin back next week. Who knows? Thank you everyone for joining, and we'll see you next week for WOR. Goodbye.